Okay, so doing video on Ruined Maid today, and I have remembered that I said nearly 2 weeks ago now that I'd get another video out on The Handmaid's Tale in the next week, and I'm sorry I haven't done that yet. It is in preparation and I'll get it out when I can. But today, my revision focus, or one of my revision foci, is The Ruined Maid by Thomas Hardy. So you can see that I've got several annotations, nicely colour coordinated, as I often am, and I hope you can read them. I'm going to be talking through them and the poem. And then at the end I'll include close-ups of them if, when I look back at this video, I don't think you're going to be able to read them fully. Okay, so Amelia is the start of the poem. O is an exclamative showing surprise. It's also quite colloquial, as clearly is the abbreviation Amelia, presumed to be Amelia, which is colloquial, suggests familiarity, and is also a sign of low social class. My dear then adds affection and builds on the idea that they were close. But this is slightly contrasted by the O, which suggests that they are no longer, or not currently, in contact. This does everything crown. Interesting. So, it's an interesting phrase by Hardy, underlines the surprise. It's an exclamative, again, marked by the exclamation mark, because crown is a noun which denotes royalty. It links Amelia to the upper classes. We've got this direct speech, and this does everything crown. Tells us about the main speaker's social class, the fact that she's not particularly high in social ranking due to her demotic language. And a good thing to note about Thomas Hardy, is that he often does portray females in a pastoral sense, as he is doing here. If you think about Tess of the D'Urbervilles, if you've read that, or Far from the Madding Crowd, they're those two Thomas Hardy novels that I've read, and they both portray women as linked to nature, which is a theme that he's continuing in his poetry. So if you're looking to make cross-contextual links, that would potentially be a really strong one. Who could have supposed I should meet you in town? Well, town is capitalised, which marks the social division between town and country. This is the indication that they would expect to meet in the country, but not in the town. Question is interrogated. There's curiosity. She doesn't have restraint, which links to her unmanaged country ways, possibly almost seeming uncivilised. And wench such fair garments. So in this respect, fair is meaning very nice rather than plain. And interestingly, for me, the word garments would be a slightly higher class. We've got the repetition of such fair garments, such prosperity, that anaphora emphasises her fortune and the splitting up of prosperity, the use of these hyphens is quite important because it marks the rhythm, and the hyphens themselves also show who's speaking at a time. Obviously not the one in prosperity, but this one. So then do quite an unusual thing for a poem. This is a conversational poem. So we've got two female voices, but they are both they're talking to each other. And I don't personally know another poem which is set up in this conversational style, and I quite like it. It's interesting if you are doing the AQA pre-1900 poetry anthology for A-level, which is why I'm studying this poem, because that's what I'm doing. This is one of very few poems within that collection which has female speakers. The only other one really is Remember, which also has a female poet. So this is probably, going on my memory, I think it's unique for having a female voice, but a male poet. So possibly the use of O could be a connection, or it could be sarcasm. She might be mocking her old friend for the way they met. Didn't you know, assuming that she should have known, assuming that it's common knowledge, and suggesting that she's not ashamed, despite the fact that she's been ruined. And I'd been ruined. It's use of the passive voice. Now, ruined automatically has several ideas. So sexually. Today, a modern reader might think of ruined as having no money. She's also been ruined morally, and she's returning with a question. And then said she starts up this refrain, which runs to prosperity, and the poem is written in heroic couplets. Return to the first speaker. We've got the idea of tatters, potatoes, very manual, and we've got what is effectively a display of country life. There are a couple of moments of alliteration, so shoes and socks, bracelets, bright, and the whole feel is very colloquial. There's the possibility of you left us, suggesting abandonment. Tatters indicates things were falling apart, without, again, lacking shoes and socks are considered basic needs, so suggesting they were living in quite deep poverty. The alliteration draws attention to the contrast. So she was lacking shoes and socks, which might be considered basic necessities, but now she has bracelets and bright flowers, which are clearly frivolities. So it really highlights that contrast between town and country. This stanza is quite different. Actually, reading it out is very interesting. At home in the Barton, you said thee and thou, and thicon and theas un and t'other, but now you're talking quite fitsy for high company. And then some polish is gained with one's ruin, said she. Now, her words, as in all of them, to some extent are rhymed with first speakers, so the raw country girl speak words, but they're rhymed through the said she, so it's not quite... Oh, sorry about that. As linked as you might expect, because the said she obviously moving into the third person, and we're presuming that that's the raw country girl. The language is really colloquial, quite clearly also dialectal. Now the use of thee and thou could be taken as affectionate. They were rather archaic terms, but were often used to convey affections. And it's interesting that she's talking about her fitting high company. The way she's talking herself is clearly not. The other thing is she's only heard her say two things. So, oh, didn't you know I'd been ruined? And yes, that's how we dress when we're ruined. Oh, just picking up on the use of we there. Possibility of the royal we, marking her self-importance, or suggesting that she is merely one of a group of courtesans. And Miria responds with some polish is gained with one's ruin. So she's again speaking in a posh accent. The use of one is interesting, while the verb gain suggests that she's winning it or that she's earned it. So slightly less annotation on these three verses. But as in each of the so far, you've got the comparison of what she was like and what she is now. So hands were like paws is compared to little gloves. And what you've got there is the animalism compared to a common mark of respectability, gentility, delicacy, and politeness. My most interesting line of the poem is, "We never do work when we're ruined," said she. So being ruined is suggesting she's a prostitute or a courtesan, which is effectively a rich prostitute or a slightly higher class prostitute. So it suggests that she doesn't do work, it's an easy life, yet at the same time her work would be having sex. And another interesting cross-textual link, which I've just thought, in The Handmaid's Tale, in chapter 2, Cora describes the handmaid's work, which in some ways is similar to what Melia is probably expected to do, as it's not what you'd call hard work. So you could suggest that there's this common idea in literature through time that it is typical for having sex, even when in a monetary manner, which clearly in the Handmaid's Tale she isn't gaining money, but even when in a monetary manner, it's not considered work. And perhaps there's an expectation that she's actually enjoying it. But the use of never is absolute, which is interesting. And through doing that, she also marks her difference from her old self when she was working in the fields. You've also got in the next stanza an interesting line, which is At present you seem to know not of megrims or melancholy. I've got this continuation of throughout with the splitting up of the last word on the third line of each stanza. And it's interesting because it says emphasised again by the consonants, but they've only been talking for a few minutes, and the Raw Country Girl sees this as enough to presume that she is never unhappy. And that links to the ideas of social ideals and divisions. The idea that the poor expect the rich to be very happy. And even though Amelia probably isn't rich because she is well dressed, she is expected to be happy. And actually what is replied is true, very short, direct, and we've got the use of caesura. So one's pretty lively when ruined. Using one as the address is distant. You've got double meanings of pretty between being quite lively and also playing on the fact that it links to her beauty. This idea that she's got a lot to do, and perhaps the fact that she is lively could be a euphemism for the fact that she has many sexual relations. And it's a return to the passive voice. So then, final stanza, we've got a slight change. Similarly, in a way, though I wouldn't necessarily make the cross-textual link, but to the last stanza of White Writing in Carol Ann Duffy's collection, Feminine Gospels, where the last stanza changes. But more a side note than anything. I probably wouldn't recommend you try and use that as an example because it'll sound quite forced. But what? So feathers, fine sweeping gown, again the alliteration. What we've got in this sixth stanza, is instead of what you used to be, what you are now, Amelia's reply, we have 2 lines for the Raw Country Girl, as she's named in Amelia's speech. I wish I had feathers, a fine sweeping gown, and a delicate face and could strut about town. Again, town is capitalised, so you're bringing in that town versus city, and the desire. And you've got this real irony at the end where she's saying, my dear, so she's returning the affectionate term that she was using in the first place. You've got cyclical, raw country girl, such as you be. Again, her tone there has changed somewhat. She no longer sounds quite as posh by using such as you be with the inversion of grammar. Cannot quite expect that, you ain't ruined, said she. And you've got multiple interpretations about why she uses the verb ain't. Is it a slip up, a link to her dialectal slang? Is she mocking? Is it revealing her origins, showing connection? And what's really interesting ultimately is that she say you can't expect it when clearly she was a raw country girl, and this is now her reality. So I hope that's been useful in some way to you. And as I say, I'll try and get that one on Handmaid's tale out. I'm not going to promise in the next week, but soon.